Good day, folks. This is Eric Rollins, the Constitutionalist, here on 15. No, no longer here in the podcast layer. I have got a bad habit I need to break. Happy to be here, part of the podcast layer family. There's all kinds of great opportunities here at the podcast layer. You've got the Delusions podcast, which is a wild ride, folks. You've got the Brain Lady. You've got Kingdom Talk. And you've got my very own, my show, The Constitutionalist. Should be a fun show today. I have got a guy that has a lot to say. He's been a leader in our community. He's a veteran. I want to say welcome, Lorenzo Rios.
Hey, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Now you're trying to unseat the dreaded Jim Costa. Now, that's my opinion. I'm not expecting you to jump in on that, but from my perspective, we could do so much better. He brags about the amount of money he's brought to the district, but when we take that 435 seats and we divide the amount of money that Congress then sends out to their districts, he's not bringing home the bacon. He's getting a small share, and if you go to something like the Freedom Index, he has a lifetime score of about 14%, meaning that's about how much he follows the Constitution. I think this current legislative session, he's lower than that. So I think there's a lot of room for growth. I think you provide an opportunity. So first, just a little bit about yourself. I mentioned you're a veteran. Thank you for serving.
America's worth it. Absolutely.
Amen.
Look, I came to the United States when I was young, as a child, and my family, we were migrant workers.
So first generation.
First
Welcome.
generation, naturalized citizen. I enlisted in the Marine Corps, and the Marines, one of the most beautiful things about the Marine Corps was they didn't want to hear excuses. They didn't want to see stories. They wanted to see results. And the Marines have this uncanny ability to bring out what's really inside you, because they get you to shut up and push forward, and obstacles are temporary, because what the Marines teach you to do is to see an obstacle and overcome the obstacle. And I think one of my greatest obstacles was what was in my head. My parents have always told me that God blesses you with everything you need to be successful. Then it's up to you to use what God gave you. And
that's a scary position, because no excuses.
Absolutely.
They say get to work.
Get to work. In America, where you apply what God has given you and you put hard work behind it, sacrifice is part of the game if you want to achieve, because opportunity exists here. And that's what I found. The Marine Corps, if anything, the Marine Corps helped me build a better relationship with my parents, because it connected me back to the values that my parents had taught me. Integrity, family, where faith is a key component, family, absolute, and then grit, to apply those abilities towards opportunity, because opportunity is not given, it's earned. You go after it, and you apply that through the most difficult of times, and great things happen. So the Marine Corps taught me that. It connected me back to my parents. When I came back home, I went to school, a small little school up in Spokane, Washington, Gonzaga University, where I was introduced to a program known as the ROTC. Mm-hmm. I had never heard of that before, and I only learned of it because there was a gentleman who saw my brown web belt, and he goes, were you in the military? And I said, yes, sir. And he goes, Marines? And I thought, how is this guy doing this? And next thing you know, I'm introduced to the ROTC. I found myself earning my commission. I served for 23 years. I served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I led troops in all those theaters. And what I thought was going to be a short tour, in other words, I was going to go in the military and come out as soon as possible, I found myself 23 years later loving every minute of it, because the people that you get to work with and what you get to do to serve this country is absolutely incredible. And I got to also serve as a professor of international relations at West Point. I got selected to go teach in their social sciences department, and there I was inspired to see the next generation of leaders being developed. Once I left the military in 2015, I found myself here in the Valley, and I was hired on with the Clovis Veterans Memorial District, which is a special district, a unit of government with a very specific charge. And that little organization allowed some of my idealism to play out. And my idealism is very simple. You love your country, so let's do something about it. I believe that the greatest way of making a difference is not by more government, but actually neighbors helping neighbors. And where government gets out of the way, we can step in to address the needs that we can see, versus charging the government to fix things where it's going to cost us 3 times more on a good day, 100 times more on most days, and 1,000 times more if it ever gets done. I would offer you the speed train that they've talked about here.
Right.
You know, we're going to see trillions of dollars wasted and nothing gets done. That's what I
Come
have
on,
seen.
there's a few overpasses. Not 1 foot a track, but a few overpasses.
Well, all that to say is, you know, the organization that I took charge of, we originally had 3 events a year, and we served a couple hundred veterans every year.
So this is Veterans Memorial
District.
Okay, so this is a special place.
It is.
I've been there to quite a number of events. It doesn't just help veterans. It is a great, almost community center.
Absolutely.
You lead that.
I do.
And I'm going to actually praise you. I know a ton of veterans. I did not serve, but I have a lot of friends that are veterans. And I have yet to hear a negative thing about the facility or about you. And that really says a lot.
That's very kind. Well, I will tell you that it's because I think we understand our role. Our role as a unit of government is to empower our local neighbors and our local organizations to be the solution in their community, and using government to support their events and empower those activities and keep government focused on its mission. In our case, our mission is to provide facilities and manage those to the very best of our abilities, which provides capacity for those organizations to do their job. My focus has been to make sure our veterans are served well and advocated for in everything we do. And the way we do it is by integrating all our veterans in everyday activity, where our veterans are not the cause for charity, but the answer to tough challenges. And when our veterans come in, we not only answer their needs by bringing in resources. We don't provide those resources, but we work with those providers of those services and bring them into that space, because remember, we only manage facilities.
Right.
And you see, that's where I've seen government lose itself. Government has good intentions, but it's when government all of a sudden starts replicating the services that are outside to try to fix it, and not fix it by helping others, but by making themselves the answer to everything. That is where government loses it, because it now starts asking for more and more and more, while not fully understanding the problem, constantly reinventing itself, and every single step of the way going further and further away from what they were charged to be.
It always gets bigger.
Absolutely.
Government employees have, especially when they're in a union, now they organize for their interest, which tends to grow government. And unions also in major ways, and I don't know that they're bad in every way, but this is one that concerns me. And one of our presidents on the left, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, talked about government unions being incestuous. What a horrible thought, and yet I don't think he's wrong. That we've built in this system where we're perpetuating the growth of government, and we lose the mission of limited government.
Absolutely. Well, in our case, we were able to take an organization that only was doing 3 events a year to now hosting more than 30 events a year. We didn't go asking for more money. We were able to generate the revenue necessary to now provide a greater resource. And where we looked at our citizens as our stakeholders with an objective to provide a greater return on investment to them every single time, how do we create greater value to them, to the community, every single day? We built everything around 4 pillars: veterans, education, community, and business. And what we found was we served our community very effectively, and we stayed very focused on our mission. And consequently, we now serve the community in such a fashion where the district serves as a catalyst for some incredible activities, but we're not the answer. We, the people, are the answer. And this unit of government supports the people, not the people supporting us. And having that focus, I think, is so important. And as I listen to some of our elected officials, I'm concerned that they now see themselves as the answer to everything versus remembering that they're the public servants who are there to listen and make sure that they are doing the bidding of the people, not making their will imposed on the people, and have the people that they serve survive and endure these ideas that whomever is their elected is now deeming it as their priority.
It's like you're watching Sacramento in
my
action.
Gosh. Well, I'm looking at like Prop 50 right now.
Right.
It is such a sad situation where, the public has already answered this question twice, 2008 and 2010, where they said, we want an independent commission to draw some fair maps, and that's how we want it done. And instead, in 4 days, in some private room where our electeds in the assembly couldn't even ask the questions because their microphones were being turned off, something gets shoved into and signed on so that we now have it on the docket for November for a special election, where we'll spend over $200 million to have this election. And regardless of where it goes, we will have spent over $200 million.
I'm hearing 250.
That's why I said it's over. And right now we're only talking the special election. We haven't even started talking all the additional campaigning and all that marketing that's going to go with it. So over 200 million, 250, I've heard the same. But that 250 is not doing anything for water. It's not doing anything for roads. It's not doing anything for safety. And what they did teach us is that when they want to get something done, they can get it done in 4 days.
Well, that 250 million would more than fully fund Prop 36, which the people overwhelmingly passed. That's the one. But before we get into that, I want to go ahead and do a little bit with agriculture.
Sure, let's talk.
We'll come back to that because crime matters.
Absolutely.
The reason I want to talk about agriculture is because it is basically the economic engine for the Central Valley.
Absolutely.
And your district is part of Tulare County and southern Fresno County. Pretty much. That's a loose way of putting that. And a whole bunch of that's agriculture.
Absolutely.
What's the number one problem in ag?
Water. That's what I see right now. When water, besides not having enough water, the water that they are allocated is not even dependable, because the water, they may have a certain allocation and they can plan for it. And quite frankly, they can't plan for it because the water allocation may be adjusted before they even receive it. And so
sometimes adjusted before the rain's done coming, so they don't actually know.
Bottom line is, we have farmers with an incredible land. This is where I understand, rich in land but poor otherwise, because they can't use the land that they do have because they don't have the water, and the water that they may or may not have is not a dependable resource. How does anyone work that way? We have some farmers here that are so incredible at how they can manage and recycle. So you want to see some incredible environmentalists? Go visit a farm.
Go visit a dairy.
Visit a dairy. That's
even more intense than
what these farmers do is absolutely amazing. And instead of critiquing them, I think they would be well served to go out and see the creativeness that they have out there. I think MacGyver must have been a farmer, because what they are able to put together, it's amazing, because they realize if it's going to be, it's because of me, and they have no one else to lean on. They just make stuff happen. We need to help them and make sure that God provides us the water. Let's get them the water. Do you realize right now we are leaning on equipment that's over 100 years old, because
you mean the infrastructure of our canals?
The infrastructure that we have here, I'm grateful that we had forefathers who thought this far out, because we have failed to sustain and do our part in having proper conveyance and proper recharge. We have lost because of overregulations and environmental justice. We have forgotten how to truly address the issue and have bifurcated in so many different ways. And in the process, we are placing our valley, the richest valley that feeds the world, in such a crisis. You know, we talk about the Golden State, but the Golden State right now is because we're turning off the water and we're seeing this beautiful green valley turn brown.
Well, 70% of fruits and vegetables for the nation come from here, and we still have enough extra to send it around the world.
Absolutely. But you know what's sad? Somehow or another, our neighbors here don't have the food that they need to satisfy the hunger that's here in our valley. We've got some problems here. How is it that we can feed the world, but we can't feed ourselves here in our valley? When we can't afford to secure those vegetables and fruits that we're shipping elsewhere to satisfy the needs of our neighbors, we've got a problem here.
Well, we have the greatest gap between rich and poor here in this state, run by one party. So there's only run by one party for more than 20 years. There's only one party to blame, because Republicans can barely get a word in.
Well, if you watch some of our assembly members, you know, I'm very fortunate to have a great assembly member, David Tangapa.
Yes, we are.
He is incredible. He's a wonderful warrior for our valley. He fights for us, and he's done a great job of communicating the challenges he's currently working with. When he tries to ask the questions, and in many situations they have turned off the mic, I'm sorry, that we have lost the ability to engage in a nice conversation where a debate is a healthy thing. When you don't like what you see, you turn off the mic. That's a problem.
I think Charlie Kirk, who,
God rest his soul.
God rest his soul, and I pray for his family. I think that's an example of exactly that. He always debated in a polite manner. Even if he disagreed with somebody, it was always polite.
But have you noticed how it's
and yet they had to shut him up because he was effective.
Well, the problem was that he was more than effective. He was right.
Yeah.
His question was, prove me wrong. He challenged them to prove me wrong. They could not prove him wrong. And in many cases, he was winning over so many individuals to that side that it became scary. But what for me bothers me is those agents who are charged with informing the public. Now it's referred to as the legacy media. Mm-hmm. They have given up a privileged role that we once gave them that space to provide us information so that we could discern our position. Now it's turned into propaganda, and where you hear them talk about how he advanced hate speech, anyone who has ever listened to Charlie would know that is so far from the truth.
Oh, absolutely.
He had a position, and he was always courteous and kind in response, but he was firm in holding his position. He wasn't just going to roll over, and he wasn't about feelings. He was about facts. Mm-hmm. And that was a difficult proposition to work with when you're leading with feelings.
Absolutely. Now, I'm going to... Go ahead. Charlie Kirk absolutely deserves a moment.
Absolutely.
Nonetheless, I didn't want to go away from agriculture yet.
No, it's okay.
Okay, so water's obviously the number one. What's the number two, and how do you try to fix it? Do you have partners you can work with? Do you have an overall vision?
Well, here's what I see as our big issue, and I also see it as an issue with ag. My top three are water, safety, and jobs. So with regards to safety, we need to help our first responders, those who are law enforcement officers, one, with the equipment, but two, with a judicial system that actually follows up when our law enforcement officers bring people in, and it takes longer to process the paperwork than it does for the person to leave. That's a problem.
Yeah.
We have failed, folks. When our farmers are losing equipment because folks are out there pilfering some of this equipment that is very expensive. And as I was mentioning earlier,
Right, and they don't necessarily even steal the whole equipment. If you just still stole the wiring on a pump that is $40,000, and now it might cost $5,000 to get it repaired.
it is very expensive when you can't count on the basics out there, whether it's the water or the security of your equipment that you can count on. That's an issue. And so for me, the second priority is safety. We need to make sure that our sheriffs, our deputies have what they need, that whether it be cameras that they need to document and capture, whatever it is that they need, we need to help them out. And I will tell you, we have great folks out there serving. I want to make sure that safety is one of those things for all families to be able to sleep well at night and not have to worry about their cars being broken into, or perhaps having your small business being broken into, because folks now feel like there is no consequence to doing these horrible acts of criminal activity. So safety is my second. And third, the third area are jobs. And what I mean by jobs, it's the economy. To develop more economic opportunity here, ag is important. That's unquestioned. But I also think we need to be able to manufacture. We need to build here in America. We want to make America great. We need to be able to depend on American-made products with American workmanship that you can count on. You don't want steel that is so brittle that
Right.
it can't handle the kind of torques that we need and the type of quality that we want for American-made products. We need to be able to build here. And so to that end, we need to create opportunities where folks graduate from school and are able to have pathways to these different industries. I would like to see, when I was in high school, I remember there were two programs that I thought at the time it was a little bit of a boondoggle, right? And that was the shop class and home ec. And I thought it was a boondoggle because one, I didn't have to do all the homework. But what I discovered was those two classes did more to help develop good citizens. My home ec teacher, one of the things that I so appreciate about her, Mrs. Brown, she made sure we understood how to have a balanced diet, but also how to have a balanced checkbook. She taught us how having checks does not mean you have money, and learning how to establish a budget and how to pay your bills and manage your money to accommodate the challenges of a family. She taught us that. In shop class, I remember Mr. Morley. He was incredible because he taught us how to work with our hands, change our oil, and work with machines. These power tools were no longer scary. Most of our kids aren't familiar with that. I would like to see more of our kids now becoming familiar with the remarkable tools and opportunities that are found in manufacturing, so that when you graduate from high school, that there are pathways to different types of employments. I would love to see more of our internships, apprenticeships. And I've been working with a gentleman here in the Valley who is absolutely incredible to work with, is Mike Betts and Betts Company. That's a story you should look into. Okay. 6th generation family. And while he could move this company somewhere else, he is determined to keep his company here.
Well, and there's problems with keeping companies here because we've got such a high cost of labor. We've got high energy cost, and yet we've still got the best weather. We've got great people.
We've got great people, but we've got horrible policies. They're overregulated, and right now, the small businesses and entrepreneurs have to survive the government overreach. The government is not trying to help them. They're not rolling out the red carpet. They're rolling out the red tape. And that attitude is essentially pushing so many of our businesses out. And it's counterintuitive to the idea that you can graduate and find a job if those big jobs that are great paying jobs like SpaceX, Tesla.
We ran Tesla out. Not completely yet, but they're working on it.
In and out. Everybody loves In and Out. Mm-hmm. We're now seeing them leave. Bed Bath & Beyond. They've said they can't do business here. They're moving out. At what point are we going to say enough? We have learned to lower our expectation to just say, well, it's good enough. I'm here to tell you, good enough is no longer enough. And we have to stop the madness and bring some common sense back. We cannot concede and give up California to these radical ideas. I believe there are options, and I believe there are good conservatives and great liberals. I don't see liberals as bad. I think there needs to be that tension that forces us to look both sides and explore.
Depends on whether we're talking about traditional liberals that acknowledge the fact that the freedom is based upon the individual, or we're talking about communist socialists. So ones that acknowledge my individual freedom, I can have a conversation. I might disagree.
Look, if you hate America, I don't care what you call yourself. I don't have time for that. We have to agree that this is the greatest nation on earth. We have to agree that these rights are not provided to us because of government. We have to accept what the Constitution has given to us, that these are inalienable rights provided to us by our Creator. Government is here to protect them. Government was never the purveyor of those rights. And we have to remember that we are a democratic republic, not a democracy. As we continue to want to rewrite the Constitution, a document that most people have not read, we need to go back to reading it and understanding it, because if you haven't had for a lot of folks, and I would encourage everybody to do this, if you have not read the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, I encourage you to do so. Because when you read the Declaration of Independence, it gives you the list of concerns that were articulated to the monarch to let them know what the issues of the day were and why this was the ultimate breakup letter. And
yes, it was.
Then the answer to the problems was the Constitution. My concern is when you start reading the Declaration of Independence, we're beginning to look a lot like what we saw there.
Right.
The taxation without representation. Well, you would say, well, we have a representative.
We do, but they're using the fourth branch of government, and I say that with huge air quotes because there isn't one. They're using it to regulate us and tax us, meaning the bureaucratic state.
It's the administrative state.
Yeah.
And that was the go-around from working the way it was supposed to work. Look, the first three articles articulate the Constitution. Mm-hmm. We have the legislative power, the executive, and the judicial. Each was established to check each other's power. But the legislative is where the answers are at. That is where we're supposed to have a lively debate where we address the issues of the day.
And in theory, that was supposed to be the strongest branch because it was the most connected to the people. They've abdicated a lot of that power to the two other branches and the fourth branch.
My biggest concern there is that it's the fourth branch where everything has been punted over, because there you have unelected bureaucrats who now create policies that for the lay person, the everyday person, is as good as law, because you can find yourself in jail if you violate this. I mean, look at these EPA and look at Department of Education. Look at how far that went. We lost the connection between the laws, our representatives, and the people. And we forget that the sovereign is not the government or the political elites. The sovereign are we, the people. And so this is where I'm saying we have to go back to who we are supposed to be, what the Constitution articulated. What is America?
Back to fundamental principles, basically.
Absolutely. Which is interesting because people who come here know America more than Americans know.
If they came the right way, meaning legally.
Yes.
Because they have to go through classes. It gives them a different perspective. They've lived in another place where they didn't have the same opportunities. Go to another country and try to define your own destiny, or say something that the government doesn't like.
I will tell you, most folks would do well in traveling to other countries, because if they tried to do what they expect done here for those who have just arrived, they will find out that it's not as free as most people think. Mm-hmm. Most countries have a very stringent policy on who and what is a citizen and what are the benefits that go along with it. But here in the United States, I haven't lost hope. I haven't lost hope. I really believe the American public is a good public. People who want to see good things happen. However, I am concerned that the last administration opened the doors in such a fashion that what was coming in was no longer just people who were looking for opportunity to work and pursue their dreams here. We found many folks who came across with other objectives. The gang members who came here thinking that this was prime place to exercise their explicit crime.
So they are here for opportunity, but
But
they're predators.
They're predators, and they have no desire to build on this country. They came with this desire to take, and that's a concern. And many folks had no desire to become citizens. There was a desire to take from the benefits that were available. I've had the opportunity to talk to many folks around the valley. There was a time when people would talk to me about all they were looking for was an opportunity to work. And this is where it becomes really difficult because folks like to mix the two. There are folks who are here who only want an opportunity to work, the dignity of work. And this is where I will tell you, immigration is one of the areas that I'd like to address, because immigration addresses, you started with agriculture. Mm-hmm. Ag needs dependable, not just water, but labor.
Right.
We need to have both parts.
And they're hard jobs. I've family were cattle ranchers. I was in Future Farmers. I was on a dairy judging team, and we got put to work. Every time there was an emergency on a dairy, mm-hmm. they're like, take off your jackets. We need help until this is done. So some days we got in learning how to judge cows. We just went to work at whatever it was, whether it was pulling a calf or helping fix the milking machines or whatever it was.
Farm work is hard work, but let me tell you, it's God's work. There's so much goodness out there that you can learn about work ethic, values. There's so much to learn out there. My point being is there are folks who want to come here and work, mm-hmm. but would like to go home when they're done. We need to find a policy that addresses that, where the dignity of labor is protected. When folks come in, they should be able to come in through the front door. You know, we had the Bracero program in the 30s. Many people in the Valley are benefactors of the Bracero program. Now, when our soldiers came back from World War II, that would have been the First World War. But it was World War II that we had a lot of our soldiers gone. When they came back, all of our immigrants were now being displaced because we now had our service members now occupying those spaces. My point being was there was a policy in place that was able to manage this flow of folks where people could come to America, do their work, be able to generate the money that they wanted, to be able to transport back. The dignity and the dependability, the dignity of the labor and the dependability of the labor for the industry was something that had a symbiotic relationship.
Yes, but during my lifetime, I'm 56. Both parties have essentially they become no evil monkeys. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, and they've completely ignored the immigration issue.
But you know what they've made evil? And this is the part that bothers me, which goes back to item number 2, safety, right? They have demonized the law enforcement that is associated with immigration, and that's ICE. Mm-hmm. Those are good people doing our bidding.
And they can't just go wherever they want.
No, but I guess the point I'm making here is instead of demonizing the people that are enforcing the laws, our public should be putting pressure on those legislators to create the law that represents the need of our country. And we are a nation of laws. If the law doesn't work, the legislature is there to address the challenge and update the law, modify it, do what's necessary to address the need. But those who are enforcing are not the demons. The demon, if there's any demon there, it's the law that's not properly addressing the need, and it's time to go back onto the House floor and get some legislation through so that the president can sign it into law.
Well, I'm pretty forgiving as if somebody came the wrong way. I see they go to the back of the line if they've never taken welfare and they've never been in trouble with the law. Okay, I'm okay with them.
That's what I remember.
I would don't want them at the front of the line because there's people that came the right way that need to be taken care of. Mm-hmm. But I'm okay with them at the back of the line. Many of them are not very upwardly mobile economically. They're poor people that are mm-hmm. struggling. So I would be okay with what if they did community service to pay their fine. I think there's ways we can work this out.
There's many ways, and I think this is where the only way we will find a way requires us to talk and not silence the other and not lead with feelings and bypass facts. We need to address the facts and then work towards solutions. And the solutions are going to require a collaborative approach to making it happen. But we need to listen and we need to act. We need legislation that addresses the issue, and the labor that comes in needs to have the dignity and the security when they come and when they leave, and it's managed in such a fashion that the industry can count on it, and all parties are protected. This is America, and that's the part that I just do not understand how it is that we've gone to this point, and the fact that we continue to devolve. There has to be a breaking point, and that breaking point is the point where we have to bring the conversation to a point where instead of boiling over and just throwing everything into the pot, we actually stop the madness and bring some common sense and really listen to the issue and work towards a solution, and stop going for political points. Let's start going towards addressing American needs, where American solutions, the solutions that we come up with make America stronger and address the needs of the public.
So I believe that, and this is something that really didn't come through until I was interviewing somebody running for a congressional district. He mm-hmm. happened to lose against Vince Vaughn, mm-hmm. Mike Boudreau. And I don't know why this light bulb, I personally like him. He's a good guy. Mm-hmm. A light bulb went off on my head, and I'm like, how did I not get the connection between a safe community and a prosperous community? Because a community that isn't safe can't really be prosperous. So if you were elected to Congress, how do you help law enforcement become more successful, more effective?
Well, first, provide them what they need. Okay. Get them the funding that they need. Promote more collaboration and community working with law enforcement. Safety requires all parties working together. Mm-hmm. This is not a one side only. It is a collaborative part, and that partnership starts in each neighborhood. I've told everybody, you want to make America great? Start with making your bed. And
Amen.
Make sure your home is the first part that's taken care of. Address the family needs, and then look out for your neighbor.
Well, nobody's going to take you seriously if you don't fix yourself.
That's it.
There's ground one.
Start with ourselves.
Get right with God. Get right with your family. Move from there.
What was it, that song Michael Jackson used to, if you want to make a change, you got to start with the man in the mirror.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. I really believe stop blaming others and start accepting accountability and responsibility. Let's start with each home that works towards one neighborhood, which allows for one community, which then becomes a community in a region. And that's what I'm focusing on right now. District 21 is built of many small communities, and I think that the raw talent and the goods to see some prosperous communities really blossom are here.
So what do you say to the people? Because as I look at this district, mm-hmm. I live in this district. Mm-hmm. I don't technically live in your district, but I am kind of a stone's throw away because I'm near the border of Clovis. So your district is half a mile away from my house.
But can we?
How do people find hope?
Well, I will tell you. You want to find hope. step outside and volunteer. Look at what your church is doing. Work with Rotary, Kiwanis, Elks, Lions, Big Brothers, Big Sisters. Just get outside and do for others.
Sure,
And
changes your perspective.
And I will tell you, if your hands are clean, it's hard to see the good. It's when you get your hands dirty in service for something bigger than yourself that not only you'll say, well, I did this for them. You will find that the greatest reward comes back at you. Because when your hands are dirty in service to others, not only is your heart full, your eyes are wide open and you can see the goodness in the neighbors around you. And I have yet to find a Republican or a Democrat in Rotary or Kiwanis, yet they're there, but that's not what they lead with. They lead with this commitment to serve something bigger than themselves. The motto of Rotary is service above self. That's not a Republican thing. It's not a Democrat thing. I will tell you, it's an American ideal. And you want to see the change, step outside and volunteer. For me, I look forward to, you want to see my plan for Fresno? Come out and join me. Work with me over at Cornerstone Charities. If you see what Jim Franklin is doing out there, it's amazing. This selflessness, because when you know Christ, when you have a relationship with your faith, I'm a Christian. So for me, Jesus Christ is my answer. I believe Jesus is everything. I know that there are other faiths, and there in Fresno, we have many faith leaders that are serving their communities. And if you just go out and let's see what they're doing, the answers are there. What I love about Jim Franklin and the Cornerstone Charities is how he is able to leverage those resources and empower and embolden other organizations, other faith-based organizations, and serving their respective communities. So it is able to push beyond. And where we get some of these organizations to stop competing and instead start complementing, we start seeing greater successes in these areas. For me, the answers to our tough problems don't start with more government. It starts with more neighbors helping neighbors, and public leaders out there without a tie. If they want to wear the tie, I will tell you this place is a little hot. And the point I was going to make earlier, the Central Valley is unique. I don't care if you live in Orosi or Danuba or Orange Cove. We're all neighbors. Mm-hmm. We're all neighbors. We all ultimately shop in the very similar Costco's. We love the Fox Theater in Visalia. We love Kingsburg. Kingsburg, I'll tell you, it is an incredible community that has done so much work to keep its identity, and they're willing to push back these development projects in order to ensure that they protect the identity of that community.
I know several of the council members personally. You're dead on that.
I salute them for what they have done. And you see, the thing I love about our this district in particular is the grit and the commitment to the values that make them great. And they defined what greatness is. And these small communities are continuing to persevere, but we're making it harder and harder for the communities to thrive because of all of these challenges that we've layered on. And I will tell you, what I see is 80 to 90% of it is man-made.
Well, local control, the ability to define your own destiny through local government, has made a huge difference. We're currently sitting in what I consider to be the best city in California, in Clovis. Mm-hmm. But Kingsburg is pretty great. And there's a lot of other places that are pretty great. But there are people that, instead of listening to the mandates, for instance, during COVID, Clovis took a different path. And because of that, they were able to fund emergency services. Businesses thrived. They didn't just shut down. As a congressman, how can you empower local communities with local control? I get you can't do anything about the state laws, but you got to be careful about how you write laws, how you bring money to your district, because if it has too many strings, it might or might not help.
I agree. And so that's, but this is where I see myself more as a project manager. And as a project manager, I believe in building greatness. the way you build greatness is by bringing a team together to address the project, where the team is comprised of different talents that put together address the issue and challenge at hand. Where we're going to address immigration, it's going to require a team that comes together to write the legislation. If I'm writing it by myself, well, you've got a fool writing the piece of legislation that only serves one. We want legislation that answers the need of we, the people. So it's going to require a collective approach to making that happen. I'm telling you, we have the answers, but we've got to stop kicking the can down the road and stop allowing folks to come back with excuses. We have to prioritize and then establish a timeline and work towards that timeline, and not allow for ourselves to get distracted with everything under the sun. Because our challenge is, when you get into that Congress and everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. When 435 individuals come with 435 perspectives, and the number one thing for them is what's number one at home, and worse, and this is where I see my biggest concern, where we have lost our focus at their concern being an American concern. Now, the concerns are politically driven, where it's a political win at all costs, as opposed to a package that's brought together and concessions are made, so it's an American win. There was a time where Republican and Democrat engagement made for better policy because it was better balanced. But now what I see is a political win is an American loss.
Well, Sacramento's a perfect example of that. No matter how good the idea is, if a Republican proposes it in Sacramento, it's, whether they're in the Senate or the Assembly, it's not going up for vote. They're not even allowed to sponsor a bill. They want them as no part of the process. Now, I think some of that happens at the national level too, because we are so divided in some ways. How do you bring people together? At least at that political level. At some point, somebody's got to be the adult in their room.
I agree. And I guess this is one of, I'm still optimistic. I have friends that are in Congress that are military veterans. Everybody thinks that a veteran is one political party. And
oh, no.
And I'll tell you, anyone who thinks that doesn't understand a veteran. You know, my most staunch Democrat friends are military. My most staunch Republican friends are military. But the one thing we can agree on is that America is worth fighting for. And we can push things aside and agree that there's an issue at hand. We can work together to address the issue. The respect that we have for each other allows us to argue with each other passionately, focused at the facts, but with an objective of addressing the problem and finding a solution that is measurable and accountable. I'm optimistic that I'd like to, and this is a call to all of my veterans. Consider yourself an answer to the problem. If you haven't thought about running for office, jump into the arena. Get out there and make a difference. And the arena doesn't have to be Congress. It might be city council. It might be school district. It might be whatever.
Even appointed positions allow you to step in.
Absolutely.
I'm on Measure Y, which is a local tax measure that happens in Clovis. I was appointed to that position. It allows me to interact with government without making the big leap of running. If we just had more people that cared about the community, that came from a broad diversity of backgrounds, that'd make a difference.
Get involved. That's it. Just get involved, and don't parrot what you hear. Be critical of what you hear. Stay informed and challenge those who you've charged to represent you. And if they don't answer the mail, then it's time to pick somebody else. And if you're not happy with the outcome, do something about it. I've talked to so many folks who say, "Oh, I really want to help you. I really would like to see you in office, but your opponent, he wins elections, so I don't want to." And I said, wait a minute. I hear you. but are you happy with the results? Well, no, I'm not. Well, then isn't that the definition of insanity, where you do the same thing expecting new results? And moreover, at what point your comfort level is creating your greatest discomfort, insofar as you're not willing to accept the risk of getting somebody else in the seat for whatever reason. But yet the person that's in that seat is not bringing home the results that you're looking for. At what point are you creating those conditions by choosing not to challenge the system?
Or not vote at all? Because somebody's going to make the decision.
Now, let me tell you, it frustrates me. I was talking to a couple of business leaders earlier this week. When you talk to somebody who is passionate and has so many concerns, and you ask them, who'd you vote for? Well, I don't vote. Well, son of a gun.
Or they don't know.
Problem number one.
I want people, to be informed, and they're like, well, who are you voting for? And I'm like, well, let's have a conversation. I don't want to just tell them.
Right.
Let's have a conversation. This is why I'm either for or against this person.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to not make it personal.
It shouldn't be. Once again, when you focus on the facts, the feelings are secondary. Mm-hmm. And this has been a promise that I've made to everybody. Look, I'm not going to promise to make you happy. I promise to be honest and be clear on what the challenge is, and do what you've asked me to do.
Well, if you do the right thing rather than try to make everybody happy, at least people will understand.
Well, when you can actually understand what the problem is and you can manage expectations, sometimes the report you give them will make them happy. But happiness is achieving your goals and objectives. But in the process, you're going to have some setbacks. But it's okay to communicate the facts of those setbacks so that everyone understands how they can contribute. Because let me tell you, there's a lot of folks that don't understand when a representative is fighting for X, Y, or Z, whether it be water, safety, regulations, whatnot, they require the input of the constituency. So when we reach out and say, we need you to contribute your feedback so that we can provide some data to the argument so that folks can understand where we're at. Get involved. Participate.
Well, we're almost done. Give your campaign contact information.
Look, I'm Lorenzo Rios. I'm running for Congressional District 21. I want to serve you. If you would like to join my team, if you'd like to share with me your concerns, please contact me at riosforcongress.com. I want to hear you. I want to serve you. Let's take this to Congress, and let's make the Valley the destination that it should be, not the drive-through or the flyovers part of the California. I'm confident if we're going to make America great, it starts by making this valley green again, where we feed this valley, this country, and we bring the Golden State back to where it needs to be to serve this great country.
Well, Lorenzo, I thank you for this time. I know, Phil, I did not give you the warning I should have, but someday I might become a professional at this. Lorenzo, it was great getting to know you.
Thank you.
I hope my people watch this, and, if they're interested in you, they should check you out.
riosforcongress.com.
Congress can make a difference.
And
who we choose. Yes.
Absolutely.
All right, Phil. I guess that's a wrap.